Welcome everyone. Today I'm doing a tutorial for the Celestial Globe by Ribbit Collector 123. It hasn't been mass produced, but it's a very fun solve, so I figured I'd share. This puzzle is closely related to Timmer's Skyglobe and Ribbit Collector 123's Skyglobe Ultimate. Relative to the Skyglobe, it adds these tiny corner pieces that the Skyglobe doesn't have. Relative to the Skyglobe Ultimate, this puzzle has these petal and edge pieces, which are not present on the Skyglobe Ultimate. And to solve the Skyglobe or Skyglobe Ultimate, you can, for the most part, just skip the steps for the pieces that aren't present. There are a few additional subtleties with the Skyglobe Ultimate, but I'll mention those later on. I don't have a Skyglobe or Skyglobe Ultimate on hand to show the algorithms, but hopefully it'll still be clear what's going on. All right, here's the outline of how I approach this puzzle. First, I rotate these big gold faces so that these little stickers match up. And this shows which faces go where when the puzzle is in a solved state. And then I solve the edge pieces, and there's a nice 3-cycle as well as a way to flip pairs of edges as needed. And then I solve the face centers, and again there's a nice algorithm to use here. Then I solve these petal pieces. This is the trickiest part. There's a nice 3-cycle to use, but it did take me a while to find it. The setup moves can get tricky too, but some good organization can simplify the setup moves quite a bit. Last, I solved these corner pieces. These can be a bit tricky too, but again, careful organization makes this step straightforward. Interestingly, the way the solve benefits so much from specific organization reminds me a lot of some of the crazy variants of other puzzles, even though this one doesn't have any turns with fixed centers or anything like that. I really like this puzzle for a lot of the same reasons though. All right, let's get started. I think these algorithms will all be clear shown on a solve puzzle, so we'll just do that. Like I mentioned, the first thing to do is to rotate these big faces so that these small stickers right along the edges of it line up and match with each other across the faces. There's not much to this step, but knowing which colors go where is the foundation of the rest of the solve, so it's pretty important. You can't actually do this on the Skyglobe Ultimate, however, since the large faces on that puzzle don't have these little overhangs with stickers on them. You can skip this step, but it'll complicate things just slightly later on. Now let's talk about these small edge pieces. You don't have to do this on the Skyglobe Ultimate. I first put the edges into place without worrying about how they're oriented. I'll come back and orient them later. To get a 3-cycle of edges, all you do is take the commutator of 2 turns on different axes. So like this. For anyone unfamiliar with the idea of a commutator, it just means that you do one thing, do another, undo the first thing, then undo the second thing. It's a common technique used for creating move sequences that affect fewer pieces. For example, in this case, you can do up, up, down, down, like I just did, to take the edge piece from here to here, and then this piece from here to here, and this one from here to here. A bunch of other stuff happens too, but that's on other piece types that we haven't solved yet, so we don't care. If you start on the other side, it does the reverse of that. So you can reverse it like this. And you can also do something like up, two, down, two. So, actually I'll start on the left like I did before. Up, two, down, two, down, two. And that basically does the same thing, but with these pieces that are further apart. So the one that was here goes here, the one that was here goes here, the one that was here goes here. And then another example, well, let's reverse this first. So another example is that you can do up, down, down, up. And then what this does is this moves this one to here, this one to here, and this one to here. And I'll use this one later on. Anyway, point being, you have options. In general for this step, if you're looking at 2 different axes of rotation, so we'll say these 2, you can cycle 3 edges, one where they overlap, and then one that's exclusively in each of these turns. So since they only overlap at one, you get this one, and then one from one of these edges, and then also one of these edges. So what you do is you rotate the one that you want to go into the middle spot here, whether it's on the right or the left. So say I want to include this one and this one. So I rotate this into the center here, and then I'm including this one, so I rotate that one into the center here, and then I undo the first move, and then I undo the second move. And there you go. And then to undo it, you just start on the other side. Great. So if you want to cycle two from one axis and one from another, what you can do is you can just turn one of the pieces, or one of the pieces from the axis with the two pieces to where they overlap. So say I wanted to cycle these two with like this one back here, I would just turn it, not like that, turn it like this, and then I could cycle this one, and this one, and then afterwards undo the setup move. So with all this flexibility, a few other setup moves may occasionally be needed to make things work, but it's generally pretty straightforward. Now let's talk about flipping edges. This is an example of a common tactic for flipping or rotating pieces when you have an easy 3-cycle available. You cycle things out of place and then use the same 3-cycle in a different way to put them back again. And in this case, you can do up to, and then down to, and then I'll start on the left as my convention and then rotate counterclockwise. And then starting on the right, up to, down to, and then rotate back to the original frame of reference. And then as you can see, we've flipped these two blocks of pieces and then done something to the corners. The great thing about this though is that each of these blocks contains exactly one edge piece. So we've really just flipped two edges. And then for anyone familiar with this, this is the same idea used in a few tutorials for solving the Rex cube. You can usually flip any two edge pieces you want this way without any setup moves. The next major step is to place the face centers. You may remember this commutator from earlier. It's up, down, down, up. Notice how this moves the centers. It flips these two and then also these two. That's great because the overlap of that operation with this turn on the back consists only of a center and then some other pieces we haven't solved yet. This is great because we can take the commutator of the up, down, down, up, and this back turn to get something that only affects centers and unsolved pieces. So let's do that. Continuing, I now turn the back, undo the commutator there at the beginning, and then undo the back turn. Great. So as you can see, it cycles these three pieces. What it does is it takes this one to this spot above it back here. It takes this one to whichever spot you rotate in to this position with the back turn. And then the piece that was here comes down to here. Great. And then as with all commutators, if you want things to go in the reverse direction, you start by moving the back layer instead. So I'll go ahead and show that as well. Excellent. If you want to cycle centers that are all in the same axis, you can do this with setup moves. Alternatively, you can just pull a piece out with the up, down, down, up, rotate to where you want it to go, put it there, rotate to where you want that one to go, put it there, then rotate back to the position or the original position, and then put that one back in. This is another pattern that shows up a lot. You pull something out, insert it where you want it, insert that thing where you want that, insert the last thing where the first one was. Some beginner 3x3 and Megaminx methods use a similar idea to permeate the corners for the last layer. So maybe that's something you might recognize. And then when solving the face centers, since you turned the larger faces to be oriented correctly at the beginning, there's not a parity case to worry about. But since you can't do that on the Skyglobe Ultimate, you have to deal with that parity case now. So if you get to the end of this step and you have two face centers swapped, what you do is you just turn a face one step, and then resolve the centers with the 3-cycle relative to the new orientation of that face. Great, now let's talk about the petal pieces. If you're solving the Skyglobe Ultimate, you can just skip this step. These are a bit harder to isolate. There's an easy-ish way to do it, but it took me more time to find than the other steps. Here's the idea. You'll remember that up, down, down, up swaps two pairs of face centers. That means if I do it twice, I get something that doesn't move the face centers at all. Great, so this isn't a 3-cycle, but it mostly only moves petal and corner pieces. These edges are also affected. But if we take the commutator of this operation with something that only overlaps with this at edges or corners, we'll get something that only affects edges and corners. Great, so now we're looking for something that only overlaps with this at a single petal piece and possibly some corner pieces. If you look at it, I can rotate the whole puzzle counterclockwise and do the mirror image of this move sequence and interact with only this piece, well, and that corner. So I'll do that now. All right, and then undoing things to make the commutator of the two different up, down, up repetitions. So now you can see that we've cycled this petal and then these two petals that are opposite this face. So again, here and then straight across here to these two. And then the one that was here came back to here, the one that was here came to here, the one that was here came to here. And then as with all commutators, you can reverse it by just starting with the second group of moves instead. So I'll do that now. So instead, I rotate first. Great. And then also that cycles the petals in reverse order. And then another way you might think to try and get more variety out of this particular 3-cycle is to take the mirror image of it. But it turns out you just end up doing the reverse of it instead, just starting from a different frame of reference. This makes sense if you look at the pieces that are actually affected. You have one right here, and then these two back here. And if you take the mirror image of that across this axis, it just swaps the behavior of the pieces. So essentially these two get swapped in their behavior, and in other words, that's the same as reversing the order. So we just have that algorithm, and then it's reverse. When you're working with these petal pieces, it may seem like they'll be really hard to set up to include in the 3-cycle. There's actually still a lot you can do to be able to access all the different petal pieces on this puzzle, though. So let's talk about the solve organization and available setup moves, since they make this step a lot more doable. I like to solve these groups of petal pieces that aren't next to one of the gold faces last. This is because you can use the 3-cycle to exchange between these groups of 3 or with any pair next to a gold face, each by adding a single setup move specific to each case. So here's how you exchange between two groups. Say I want to move this piece over to this group. Then I can just rotate these two pieces like this so that they're opposite this one and use the 3-cycle. And then similarly, if I want to exchange with this group over here, I can just rotate these two so that they're opposite this one. And then if I want to rotate just between these 3 for some reason, I can just turn it all the way around so that these two are opposite this one there. Great, now let's talk about exchanging between these center groups and the pairs of petal pieces that are around the gold faces. So the 3-cycle already lets you cycle one piece from this group with a pair that's next to the face opposite it. So any of these around here. So by rotating this back layer as a setup move, you can actually cycle this piece with any of the pairs that are next to this back face. This applies equally well to any of these 3 pieces. So really with a single setup move, you get to choose one of these pieces and then one of the pairs of petals next to the gold face that's opposite this group to use in the 3-cycle. And then if needed, you can also rotate this face. So again, pay attention to this position. It doesn't overlap with these two back here. you can rotate this face to get a petal that you're interested in into this position to begin with. So just with those two kinds of setup moves, you can move a piece to be in the group of petals opposite from the face next to a pair where you want to place it, and then you put it into the pair. Another useful thing to note here, though, when you're placing the first piece that goes into one of these pairs, it's helpful to put it next to the place where you want it to go, not actually into the place where it'll eventually be. This is because when you go to place the one that's next to it, both pieces will be participating in that 3 cycle. So you're going to have to move this piece again. And, well, okay, so say you're placing this one. You want to put it here first, and then you can put it here, because you're going to have to move it again when you place this piece as well. And so if you don't do that, you'll end up doing more work to get them both into place, and you'll end up having to set it up so that you can place both of them simultaneously. If you happen to come across the case where a pair of edges is swapped, so say we're looking at these, the easiest way to deal with this is to take another unsolved petal piece on hand that matches either of the colors. And then you can just cycle it with these two so that both of these spaces end up solved. Another somewhat harder way to deal with this is to pull one of the swapped pair out. So say pull this out into this group, and then turn this whole thing like this, so that you're exchanging with a different piece in this group of 3. Cycle it again so that the piece that you placed when removing the other one is on the other side of the pair again. So I think we're looking at these. So you put it so that it's opposite where it's supposed to go in this pairing, and then rotate back and then cycle both of them into place simultaneously. These techniques are nearly enough to solve the petal pieces. You migrate pieces from the groups of 3 to pairs next to the gold faces, and eventually you'll have all those solved. Then you can focus on solving the groups of 3 by just interchanging pieces between them. You can do some fancier setup moves as a shortcut to save time if you want. There is one last case to worry about with the petals, though. When you finish off, you may end up with just 2 petals swapped. The easiest way to fix this is to do a 3 cycle of the 2 swap petals together with another petal that you've already solved that matches the color of either of the 2 unsolved petals. Great, so how do we set this up? Using the 3 cycle, you can migrate the swap pair around so that they're together on the same corner. This means we can focus on the example of needing to swap 2 petals that are next to each other. So say we want to swap these 2. From here, you want to cycle these 2 with some other petal that matches one of them. So one way to do that is by moving them up like this, and then taking, I think it's this one, around to here. And then from here, so this is the pair that we're looking at, and then over here on the opposite corner, we have one that matches, so we can turn this back layer, so changing the orientation, we can turn this back layer so that these 2 are opposite, like that. So we have this piece and these 2 back here. You can cycle these 3. So again, we're looking at this one and these 2. You can cycle that with a 3 cycle, and then bring it back. So 1, 2, 3, and then up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, great. So with that, that's how you finish solving the petals. And then, yeah, you undo the setup moves like I just showed. Great, you're done with the petals. Let's talk about the corners. If you've been working on the Skyglobe, you're done. If you're working on the Skyglobe Ultimate, you do this step to finish. This is also the last step for the Celestial Globe. There are a few different useful algorithms, and again, a helpful solve order to keep the complexity of the setup moves manageable. First, here's how you cycle the corners. You take the commutator of this move sequence, so it's up, up, down, down, with this back turn. So the only overlap is a single corner. So when we finish the commutator, the only pieces affected are going to be corners. So we'll bring in this one, and then undo, and then undo the back rotation. That's the main idea of the solving pattern. You also need to make sure the corners with a gold side are rotated properly before placing them. This is actually fairly easy to do, though. Say the piece I want to put here is over here. Then I can rotate it one way like this, so that the red side is down now. And if I want to rotate it the other way, then I can just bring it over like this and then bring it back. And so now the green side is down instead of the white. Great. So when placing it in one of these two spaces, you want the side of the corner that matches this face to be down. So if you're doing this as your back axis and you're doing the up, up, down, down with these two rotations, then you want the side that's down, so here, 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 etc., to match the orange one, or just whatever's here. Another technique that also works for rotating a corner before you place it is to just do a deep cut turn before placing it. So, for example, say the one that I want to place here is here. Then what I can do is, these two are just close to this face, so I can just turn the whole thing like this, so that this one's oriented however it needs to be, so that when I bring it over to here, it'll work great. Or it'll fit in perfectly. That's really all there is to solving the corners with the gold sides on them. After that, I like to solve these 4 corners without worrying about how they're rotated, and then rotate them afterward. After solving the corners with the gold faces, you may end up with either 3 of these needing to be cycled, or 2 different pairs needing to be swapped, or just have them all already in the correct places. If it's a double swap, you can just use the algorithm I showed earlier. If you need to cycle 3 of them, here's how you can do that. So say I want to cycle these 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out using the up, down, or up, up, down, down, and then rotate to where I want it to go, put it in, rotate to where I want that one to, or so the one that was here is now here, rotate to where I want that one to go, put it there, rotate back to the original spot, and put that last one in. And then that also brings this piece back into position. And so this is taking advantage of the exact same overlap as the 3 cycled corners that I showed earlier. It's just adapted to cycle only corners that are next to this particular cut. Great, here's how you can rotate these corners. So say you want to rotate these 2. So first you can cycle these 3 like this. And then what you can do is you can actually just rotate this whole thing however you want to get this one oriented to go back into place here. And so what you want is you want the face on this corner that matches this face over here to go, or to be oriented down. So in this case, this is just right back where we had it. See, and so the purple's down here, and then you can undo the cycle of the corners. Great. Alternatively, you can also use the double swap I showed earlier, and this will rotate this one counterclockwise and this one clockwise, and then it won't touch these 2. So what you do is you do up, up, down, down, the 2 spaces each time, so 3 times in a row, and then you flip it around like this and then do it again. So you're doing the double swap algorithm and then the double swap algorithm again. And I'll show that. So up 2, down 2, down 2, up 2, up 2, down 2, down 2, up 2, up 2, down 2, down 2, rotate it around, up 2, up 2, down 2, down 2, up 2, up 2, down 2, down 2, up 2, up 2, down 2, down 2, and then back to the original frame of reference. And then as you can see, we've rotated this one counterclockwise and this one clockwise. So that's how you solve the Celestial Globe, and also how you solve the Skyglobe and Skyglobe Ultimate. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial and have an excellent day. Thank you.